Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And if you are tuning in, you are probably smarter than the average bear. Extinction Rebellion, again, in the headlines, at least in the UK. This is from The Guardian from yesterday. Police ban Extinction Rebellion protests from whole of London. You all can't be here, is what they're trying to say. Police have banned Extinction Rebellion protests from continuing anywhere in London as they moved in almost without warning to clear protesters who remained at the movement's camp in Trafalgar Square. The Metropolitan Police issued a revised Section 14 order on Monday night that said any assembly linked to the Extinction Rebellion autumn uprising must now cease their protests within London by 9 p.m. Almost immediately, officers moved into Trafalgar Square and demanded that protesters remove their tents. Most XR activists staying at the site had already decamped to Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens south of the river, and only a few dozen tents, along with gazebos and other infrastructure, remained on the square. More than 1,400 people have been arrested during 8 days of XR action, with the threat that anyone defying police orders would be detained. Until Monday night, Trafalgar Square had been specified by the Met as the only legitimate protest site, and officers had been telling protesters to go to the square if they wanted to continue protesting. So you can only protest where we tell you, and now you can't protest at all. Howard Reese, an XR spokesman who was at the scene, told The Guardian that police started clearing Trafalgar Square before even issuing the revised order to protesters. They gave us the notification. We have started clearing the square, Reese said. It's all peaceful. People, for the most part, are being given the opportunity to move their possessions. But obviously, there are a lot of people who have had stuff here who are not actually on site. Hence, the marquees are full of people's gear, and other people are trying to get it to safety. The police are, for the most part, watching over that operation. On Twitter, the London branch of XR wrote, "Police are clearing peaceful protests in Trafalgar and Vauxhall. They are backtracking on promises made, and MEPs say, in contravention of UK law in the National Square, this is an emergency and an outrage. The police must respect the law. This is a democracy." Or is it? Yeah. There aren't really any true democracies, because at the end of the day, the state will always resort to violence and use of power and force in order to enforce the authority of the state. And that's how that goes. And that's how it's been going. I think since the 60s or the 70s, it's like, they let people protest and run around and after they were done water cannoning them and truncheoning them and doing all that, really kind of, nice kid glove kind of stuff to people. But when they got, really fed up, finally they just started shooting people and just really started knocking people in the heads and putting people in jail, and mainly just shooting people and shooting the leaders. And that's how that goes. And now that Extinction Rebellion has really got people's attention, this is when the state goes, the thing to do right now is to break out the power play. So just make it illegal for this protest to keep going on. I don't know what this is going to do to the movement. This is not a good thing. A few XR activists locked themselves in place to slow the police operation, Reese said. Specialist police teams were working to cut them free and arrest them. It was unlikely that protesters at Trafalgar Square and their equipment would be taken to an alternative camp at Vauxhall because the site was considered to be full and its security was uncertain as it remained subject to the Section 14 rules. This came a day after scores of protesters were arrested for blocking traffic outside the Bank of England. How dare ye? Including a 77-year-old rabbi who was dragged away by officers after refusing to comply with a police order to leave the area. Hundreds of demonstrators walked into the road outside the Bank of England in the city and sat down early on Monday morning. The group said Extinction Rebellion this morning are disrupting the system, bankrolling the environmental crisis, as they should. The day of disruption, which will target financial institutions, seeks to highlight the far greater disruption faced by those living in the environments systematically being destroyed by the UK-backed companies. The ecological damage is global, and it is hitting the global south now. Protesters say they are switching their focus to the financial institutions funding environmental destruction. As well, they should. I would suggest some boycotts, Extinction Rebellion. Don't just get in people's way. Really get in people's way. Like, if you can, I know it's difficult to do. I know they're difficult to organize, but you have the momentum right now. You have public, the public opinion beginning to take notice. You have people on your side. You could start calling for some, serious boycotts of the financial system, of the fossil fuel industry, et cetera, et cetera. This is just my suggestion. I don't know. And speaking of which, let's move on to this. Reserve Bank warns climate change posing increasing risk to financial stability. This is also from The Guardian. Well, no duh. RBA says it is becoming increasingly important for investors and institutions to actively manage carbon risk. So instead of hauling people to jail, or instead of, bringing people on national television and telling them they're insane, and that they can't do things in this manner, maybe point to this, where actual, the bankers are saying, hey, if we don't do something about this, our industry is going to be in trouble. Australia's central bank has delivered a clear warning that climate change is exposing financial institutions and the financial system more broadly to risks that will rise over time if action isn't taken. The RBA's Financial Stability Review, released Friday, concluded that while climate change is not yet a significant threat to financial stability in Australia, it is becoming increasingly important for investors and institutions to actively manage carbon risk. The bank notes Australian insurers are the most directly exposed to the physical impacts of climate change, and points out that inflation-adjusted insurance claims for natural disasters this decade are more than twice what they were in the previous 10 years. It notes this impact is likely to grow over time. An increase in the frequency and severity of natural disasters will increase the incidence of damage to or destruction of physical assets that are insured or used as collateral. Assets that are exposed to increasing physical risk, such as property located in bushfire-prone or coastal areas, could decline in value, particularly if these risks become uninsurable. Climate change could also reduce the certain types of business income that is used to service loans. Examples include changing rainfall patterns that result in lower or less predictable income from agriculture, more frequent storms, disrupting supply chains and therefore sales, and damage to natural assets that reduce tourism income. RBA says banks and other lending institutions are also exposed to physical risk because climate change can result in a decline in the income or value of collateral that they are lending against. Again, it's all bad when climate change kicks in. Powers that be, military, industrial, corporations, and the deep state, and whoever, global financial institutions, hello. Even your own people are saying this is a problem. And I want to cover this. Didn't get to cover this yesterday. North America suffers unbelievable snowfall totals. State of emergency declared in Canada. This is from yesterday. The weekend's historic Arctic front brought significant snowfall to many regions of North America, particularly in southern Canada and Midwest western United States. Leading up to its arrival, we were talking about how this could be a major event, said CMOS accredited weathercaster Chris Sumner. But it's nearly unbelievable some of the snowfall totals we're hearing about, considering the time of year it is. And this is pretty wild when you start hearing the totals. When you look at these numbers and combine the fierce winds we experienced, it becomes very clear very quickly why Manitoba Hydro is dealing with the damage it is right now. So, snow totals over the weekend in Carberry, 29 inches. Morden, 25 inches. Strathclair, 24 inches. Trehorn, 23.6 inches. And it keeps on going. Winnipeg, 13.4 inches. Douglas, 12.2 inches. Dauphin, 11.8 inches. Lots of snow. A tweet from one Sonia Toes. Our yard has been destroyed by wet, heavy 24 inches of snow we have gotten here in southern Manitoba. We went to bed to the continual cracking and breaking of trees. The city of Winnipeg has experienced an unprecedented weather event with strong winds and heavy snowfall, reads Mayor Brian Bowman's official declaration. In part, the storm continues to require prompt action to prevent or limit harm or damage to the safety, health, or welfare of residents. The state of emergency will last until November 12th. Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister has since declared a full-blown province-wide state of emergency, allowing recovery crews additional support and funding to deal with the aftermath of the record-breaking storms. After the clear-up, concerns will turn to overland flooding and rising rivers and streams. One more time. Early snowstorms in Montana are being linked to the deaths of 5 grizzly bears. The bears were feeding on the carcasses of cattle that had been caught in a late September blizzard on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation. Cold weather and snow has resulted in the loss of some of the bears' natural autumn food sources like choke cherries. So here's another perspective. Grand Forks is 7,400% above normal snowfall right now. 7,400%. Great Falls, 900%. Bismarck, 3,280%. Billings, Logan, 152%. Helena Regional, 138%. Fargo, 4,400% above normal snowfall. Rapid City, 1,050%. That is wild. And then some goofballs tweets. This is the grand solar minimum. No, it is not. This is called polar incursion from the Arctic, which is too warm, forcing all this cold air out of the Arctic. And we already know this story. This is not Jesus Christ. Anyways, more extreme weather fun. And I'm going to read, where did it go? That's not what I wanted to read. This is what I wanted to read. Sorry that I didn't have it loaded. Oh no. I think that I might have deleted it. No. Hold on. Yes. We'll do this one. Yes. Okay, we're going to finish this video with more Marty McCorkle. Why? Because McCorkle. This is from the other day, 2 days ago. That Marty McCorkle is a complete ass and should be put on the unfun end of a water cannon. I can't stand joke-cracking smirky types who make light of a perfectly good planetary tragedy, and smarty pants like him ruin the whole somber tone of this century and its pious, do-nothing windbaggery. If society plans to keep its cake both in its stomach and in its refrigerator, no one should laugh. Or it ruins society's unctuous tone and might make it do something to prepare for environmental overshoot. Overshoot is coming to sit on industrial civilization's head and grind it into a skid mark. So the last thing it wants is to be laughed at, which just makes it even angrier and grind its wide hips even harder. We need to stick to banning straws and other skeletonic, do-nothing symbolic ways of not changing our lifestyle until this apocalypse is in full bloom. Non-action through social media is just as good as actual sacrifice. If I remember right, Twitter and Facebook won the Allies in World War II, defeating Hitler's MySpace. Many likes were sacrificed. What's important is that the current ruling class is not replaced with people willing to prepare for an unusually severe ending event, or the current ruling class would feel deeply hurt, jobless, homeless, and perhaps headless. So stop laughing. Collapse. Unpreparedness is no joking matter. We must continue to do nothing to prepare until we wonder why we didn't. At which time the ruling class will be broadcasting from one of the more upscale neighborhoods of New Zealand bunkers, broadcasts hosted by Ellen DeGeneres. Our society might be an elephantine joke, but there's no need to pick on such an easy target. So good day to you, Corky. Ha ha. I bet you never heard Corky before. Zing. Ha ha. And with that, I leave you. I bid you good day. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.